My own flesh and blood conspired against me, landing me behind bars for something I never did. He destroyed my unborn grandchild's memory. Everyone assumed this elderly gentleman was defeated, without resources, forgotten by society. They had no idea what awaited them. A single phone call would transform everything. The prison cell reeked of moisture, cement, dried perspiration, and extinguished dreams. Yet within those confines, I, Alexander King, had transformed the walls into my timeline. Using my thumbnail, I etched another mark beside my bed frame, 729 days. Tomorrow would mark day 730, when I'd finally depart Dallas County Jail. I inhaled the recycled Texas atmosphere that carried notes of oxidized metal and bitter memories. Even at night, the heat transformed my cell into a furnace. Cross-legged atop the thin mattress, I reflected on my previous life. Before incarceration, I rested in a king-sized bed within my Highland Park estate. Previously, I was Alexander King, Monarch Global's creator, possessing $70 million. Currently, I was prisoner A47239. Recollections flooded my consciousness. The courtroom, Judge Crowley's frigid expression, and at the witness platform, my son Marcus King in an expensive suit, displaying manufactured grief. He testified about loving me while claiming he couldn't defend my actions. He alleged I pushed Serena down a staircase while she carried his child, killing the unborn baby. Then Serena appeared in a wheelchair, grasping her abdomen. False tears streamed down her cheeks as she claimed I screamed before pushing her, causing her to lose the pregnancy. Complete fabrications. Every statement was deception. I had traveled to Marcus's workplace that day to address embezzlement concerns. $1.5 million missing from corporate records. I never made physical contact with Serena. She deliberately threw herself down those stairs. The surveillance camera mysteriously malfunctioned during those critical moments, preserving only footage showing me at the staircase's summit with fury on my features. 24 months of imprisonment. When the gavel struck, my existence crumbled. I observed Marcus embracing Serena, and in that instant I detected something. Not remorse, but calculation. The expression of someone who'd successfully removed the sole barrier to inherited wealth. I attempted resistance, but Marcus acted swiftly, filing an urgent petition to immobilize my financial accounts, asserting I was psychologically unstable. Without money, I couldn't retain legal professionals. I remained confined with an exhausted public defender who scarcely examined my situation before recommending a guilty admission. I declined, proceeded to trial, and suffered defeat. My cellmate Bill Henderson, a gentleman in his 60s serving time for fraud, interrupted my contemplation. He noted my unusual calmness for someone departing the following morning. I responded quietly that the genuine suffering wasn't within these walls. It existed outside, awaiting my emergence. Standing before the fractured mirror, I examined the transformed individual staring back. Hair streaked with silver, features hardened, eyes darker. I'd shed 20 pounds from the fury combusting internally. I contemplated Diana, my spouse of 3 decades, deceased 3 years prior. She departed before witnessing our son's transformation. Marcus and Serena's names became curses on my lips. Tomorrow they'd position themselves outside with media representatives orchestrating reconciliation. However, confinement had instructed me in patience. Patience constituted weaponry, and retribution served optimally when chilled. I'd frozen mine for 24 months. When the cell door opened in several hours, damnation would accompany my departure. Visitation notification arrived. Marcus was approaching. Through the plexiglass divider, I observed Marcus in his $3,000 suit. Beside him sat Serena, thinner now. Marcus grabbed the telephone, pleading for me to authorize the trust fund transfer, $2 million. He claimed the corporation required it, with an audit commencing the following day. I responded coldly, inquiring about basic greetings before business. Serena interjected with tears, claiming they'd maintained Monarch Global during my absence, suggesting I owed cooperation. I laughed bitterly at the suggestion that my contribution should involve sitting imprisoned for crimes I never committed while they occupied my residence. Marcus corrected me sharply, asserting the house was his now, as he was CEO. I responded that nothing belonged to him, not until my death. Movement behind Marcus captured my attention. Elena King, my daughter, 29, wearing a black Armani suit with pulled-back hair. Her expression remained neutral as she approached. Marcus requested she convince me to cooperate. Elena met my eyes through the barrier, stating I should sign documents, claiming it served everyone's best interests. Something fractured internally. Even Elena had aligned with Marcus. Marcus leaned forward, explaining the bank required biometric verification, fingerprint and facial recognition, necessitating my physical presence at the banking institution the following day. Just one signature for $2 million. I inquired coldly why they couldn't forge my signature. Marcus flushed, explaining it was a federal crime with sophisticated banking systems preventing such actions. I smiled humorlessly, noting his sudden concern about criminal activities. Serena's tears vanished, replaced by anger, calling me a stubborn fool destroying everything from spite. I advised caution, my voice dropping to ice, noting I possessed nothing remaining to lose, questioning whether they could claim the same. Marcus slammed the table, declaring tomorrow I'd emerge with nothing, no money, no family, no power, as they controlled everything now. I leaned forward, locking eyes with my son, responding softly that we'd see about that, promising tomorrow I'd demonstrate what having nothing genuinely meant. I stood, hanging up the telephone. As I walked toward the officer, I heard Elena's quiet voice stating, "Goodbye, Father, not see you tomorrow, just goodbye." Morning sunlight streamed through Dallas County Jail's iron gates. I stepped into it, blinking after 730 days under fluorescent illumination. September heat struck, thick Dallas atmosphere smelling of freedom and gasoline. A crowd had assembled outside. Media representatives with cameras and center stage stood Marcus and Serena. My son wore a navy suit, his features arranged into careful remorse. Beside him, Serena clutched white roses in her cream dress. Props for the cameras. Marcus's voice carried across the parking area, welcoming me back, declaring we were family. I didn't break stride, walking forward in my wrinkled white shirt and faded jeans. These were the garments I'd worn during arrest, all I possessed now. Marcus stepped forward, extending the roses, pleading for me to come home. I walked past him, not around him. Past him, as though Marcus was sidewalk furniture. His voice sharpened as his hand shot out, grabbing my arm, demanding I not create a scene. I stopped, turned my head, looked at Marcus's hand gripping my arm, then met his eyes. The cameras were recording. I spoke quietly, instructing him to release me or I'd scream about assault. Marcus's hand dropped like he'd contacted fire. I resumed walking. Behind me, Serena's voice rose, declaring 2 years had destroyed my mind. The rumble of a powerful engine interrupted her. A black Rolls-Royce Phantom glided into the parking area, chrome gleaming. The license plate read, Vance. The driver's door opened. A young man stepped out. Early 30s, athletic build, expensive charcoal 3-piece suit. Dark hair precisely cut, intelligent eyes behind rimless glasses. Julian Vance, Harvard law graduate, the attorney who won impossible cases. Julian walked directly to me, ignoring reporters, ignoring Marcus's shock. His voice was clear and respectful, announcing everything was ready. I shook his hand firmly. Julian opened the rear door. I paused, turning back to Marcus and Serena. They stood frozen, roses wilting in Serena's hands, mouths open, their scene collapsing. I didn't smile, didn't gloat, just looked at them, letting them see that something fundamental had changed. Then I slid into the Rolls-Royce. Leather embraced me. The interior smelled of luxury, new leather, polished wood, power. Outside, chaos erupted as reporters swarmed Marcus, questioning who collected me. Marcus's face cycled through emotions: confusion, shock, fury. Serena grabbed Marcus's arm, composure shattering, reminding him he'd said Vance refused them and that I had nothing left. Through tinted windows, I watched realization dawn on Marcus's face. He'd miscalculated. The game wasn't concluding, it was beginning. Julian slid into the driver's seat, pressed the start button. The engine purred. He glanced in the rearview mirror, inquiring about our destination. I leaned back, closing my eyes, taking my first truly free breath in 24 months. Outside, Marcus was shouting. I smiled, cold as winter, instructing Julian to take me where I needed to wash off their touch. And then we'd begin the war. The Ritz-Carlton penthouse occupied the 42nd floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered views of Dallas stretching to the horizon. I walked to the bathroom, marble everywhere, gold fixtures, a shower with 6 heads. I turned the water to scalding, stripped off prison garments, and stepped under. The water hit like baptism. I scrubbed with hotel soap, cedar and bergamot, scrubbed until my skin reddened. 24 months of that place. The tears came, hot as water, silent. I braced against marble and let them fall, not from weakness, but from rage, from grief for the man who'd trusted his son. That man was dead. When I emerged in a plush robe, Julian Vance waited in the living area, but not alone. An older woman sat in a leather chair, past 60 with silver hair cut short, sharp eyes, charcoal pantsuit. Julian introduced Margaret Hale, the best defense attorney in Texas. She explained she'd finished corporate corruption work before they imprisoned me. I was the scapegoat. She served 5 years for refusing to betray her client, released 6 months ago. Julian was her student who'd told her about me. She wanted to destroy corrupt individuals, and my son qualified. Julian gestured to documents covering the coffee table, explaining we needed to move rapidly. First document, power of attorney. Marcus had declared me mentally incompetent. We were revoking it. My signature would reactivate my 70% shareholder status. I signed immediately. Next, emergency forensic audit, freezing all company accounts until completion. Marcus couldn't move money without board approval. Duration, minimum 30 days, longer if they found irregularities, which they would. I instructed them to proceed. Margaret leaned forward, explaining my source sent materials. A manila envelope with no name, just one letter. E. I knew that handwriting. Inside was a flash drive and note stating, 2 years of work, everything you need. Trust Julian. It was signed, your ally. Julian plugged in the drive. His laptop filled with spreadsheets, bank records, emails, shell companies, money laundering, bribes to Judge Crowley, the technician Marcus paid to corrupt footage. I asked quietly who this was. Julian replied anonymous, but someone with Monarch Global access, someone Marcus trusted. I stared at the letter with its single initial, Elena. My chest tightened. She'd been cold yesterday, distant, unless it was all performance. Julian prompted me back. I looked up, pushing the thought aside, instructing them to execute the freeze, cutting Marcus from every account. I wanted him to feel what having nothing meant. Julian's fingers flew across keys, explaining the bank would receive our court order within the hour. Marcus would be notified by morning. Credit cards would decline. 0 account access. I returned to the windows overlooking Dallas, my city, my company, my empire. Marcus thought he could steal it all. He miscalculated badly. Margaret handed me a photograph, recent picture of Marcus and Serena at Monarch's steakhouse laughing, toasting champagne. On back, same handwriting. Let them enjoy their last supper. I smiled coldly, asking when we'd go public. Tomorrow, Julian said, press conference where I'd announce taking back control. Across town, Marcus's phone rang in Monarch Global Executive Office. Caller ID showed First National Bank of Texas. He frowned, answered. The representative explained they were seeing irregularities with his corporate accounts, requesting he come to the branch immediately. Marcus's blood ran cold. Monarch's steakhouse gleamed with old money elegance, Crystal chandeliers, white tablecloths, soft jazz. Marcus King sat at the center table. Serena wore burgundy Valentino. Across sat Robert and Linda Stone, owners of Stone Construction, potential investors. Marcus needed their $15 million. He gestured with his wine, promising 40% ROI within 18 months. Robert nodded, mentioning my impressive empire. Marcus corrected smoothly. Had, explaining he was expanding it. Linda asked about me, about my release that day. Marcus's smile didn't waver, describing me as confused after 2 years, but they were handling everything. Serena placed her hand on his, calling it heartbreaking, but emphasizing they were family. The waiter appeared with their bill, $850. Marcus pulled out his corporate black card, handed it over. The waiter swiped. Beep, declined. Frown, tried again. Beep, declined. Marcus's stomach dropped. Third swipe. Beep. The waiter apologized. Linda and Robert exchanged glances. Marcus laughed too loudly, asking Serena to use hers. Serena fumbled for her supplementary card. Same account. Beep. Declined. Heavy silence. Marcus stood abruptly, chair scraping. He walked toward the entrance, phone at his ear, calling Nathan Reed, the CFO. He demanded to know why the cards weren't working. Nathan's voice came panicked, explaining all company accounts were frozen. SEC order at 5 o'clock, emergency forensic audit. Marcus's world tilted. He questioned on whose authority. Nathan answered quietly, my authority. Alexander had reactivated his majority shareholder status. The board sided with him. Marcus protested he was CEO. Nathan explained his appointment was based on power of attorney, which I'd revoked. Legally, I never stopped being chairman. The $2 million withdrawal that morning was canceled, flagged suspicious, every account locked. Nathan added that Marcus should turn on the TV. Marcus spun toward the bar's flat screen showing CNBC. I stood at a podium, Monarch Global logo behind me, expensive suit, looking healthy, strong, angry. The caption read, Alexander King announces return to Monarch Global. My voice rang clear, announcing as rightful owner and chairman, complete management restructuring effective immediately. While I was wrongfully imprisoned, massive financial irregularities occurred. Legal action would be taken against all responsible parties. The screen cut to reporters as I walked away. Marcus stood frozen. Every eye in Monarch Steakhouse was on him. The waiter hovered with the unpaid bill. Serena appeared hissing, noting people were staring, demanding to know what was happening. Marcus couldn't speak. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. Enjoy your last supper. It was signed with a single letter. E. It wasn't just a declined credit card. It was checkmate. Marcus King woke to his phone vibrating, 47 missed calls, 63 texts, barely 7 in the morning. First text from his assistant demanding he call immediately. Third included a link to Twitter where Your Truth for Alexander was trending #1. The top tweet from an anonymous account called Justice Revealed had 40,000 retweets. One image, medical record from Mercy General Hospital, Dallas, patient Serena Pierce King. Marcus's hands shook reading it. Date September 23rd, 11:45 p.m. Diagnosis: spontaneous incomplete abortion due to illegal diet pills DNP. Serena's fall at my office happened September 25th, 2 days later. Comments filled the screen. She lied. Baby was already dead. Alexander King is innocent. Marcus scrolled. Instagram exploded. TikTok viral. Reddit threads. Marcus threw his phone. Serena stirred, asking what was wrong. He commanded her to get up, shoving his iPad in her face, showing the medical record, demanding she explain. Serena went white, claiming it was fake. Marcus grabbed his phone, dialed, put it on speaker. Dr. Carver at Mercy General answered. Marcus demanded to know if the medical record was authentic. The doctor couldn't discuss patient matters. Marcus demanded again. Quietly, the doctor confirmed yes, stolen by a terminated nurse but genuine. Marcus hung up, stared at Serena. She was crying real tears. Marcus stated slowly that she lost the baby 2 days before because of illegal diet pills, then faked the fall. Serena screamed she was scared. Marcus interrupted, grabbing her shoulders, stating she lied, sending my father to prison for 2 years for a baby already dead. She claimed she saw an opportunity, panicked, threw herself down the stairs. Marcus released her like poison, stumbling back, whispering that he destroyed his father, testified against him, all for a baby that never existed when she fell. He questioned what they'd do. Marcus laughed bitterly. I froze everything, and now the world knows she's a liar. Serena's mask cracked, revealing ugliness beneath, claiming he shouldn't pretend this was about justice. He wanted Monarch Global. She just gave him the excuse. Marcus stared at her, really seeing her for the first time. Not beautiful wife, but cold, calculating stranger who'd played him from the start. Serena stood, chin lifted, stating with contempt that he destroyed me because he was greedy. Outside, car doors slammed. Marcus walked to the window. 3 news vans parked outside the gates. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. The truth always surfaces. The Highland Park mansion gate swung open at 3 in the afternoon. I stepped from Julian Vance's Bentley, flanked by 2 police officers and a court official with documents. Behind them, a moving truck. Marcus appeared at the front door, barefoot, wrinkled shirt, bloodshot eyes. He shouted, demanding to know what this was. The official read the property deed, explaining it was registered under my sole ownership, premarital asset, immediate eviction granted. Marcus protested. This was their home. My voice cut like ice. This was my house. He'd been a guest who overstayed and started stealing. Serena rushed out in her bathrobe, claiming I couldn't do this. I turned to her, stating she was no lady, just a parasite. I nodded to officers to remove personal belongings, clothes and toiletries only. Serena screamed about her dresses and bags. I cut her off, explaining they were paid for with stolen money. A black BMW pulled up. Elena King stepped out in a navy pantsuit. Marcus's face lit with hope, begging her to tell me this was insane. Elena walked past Marcus without acknowledgement, approached me, heels clicking. She addressed me as father, pleading for private handling, noting he was still my son. My jaw tightened, instructing her to stay out of this. Elena lowered her head, stating she understood my anger, but he was family. I responded he destroyed himself. Elena turned to Marcus, face a mask of regret, apologizing and explaining she tried. Marcus grabbed her arm. Elena pulled free gently, stating he made his choices, chose Serena over me, chose lies. She couldn't help someone who betrayed their father. She walked to her BMW without looking back. 30 minutes later, Marcus and Serena stood outside the gates with 3 suitcases, everything they could prove they'd bought themselves. The gates closed with electronic finality. Neighbors filmed on phones. 3 days later at Sunset Motel Room 204, mildew and defeat, rattling air conditioner, stained bedspread. Marcus sat on the sagging mattress counting cash. $180. That was everything. Serena emerged from the bathroom, expensive hair now limp, complaining she couldn't live like this. Marcus responded flatly that she should leave then. She questioned with what money. Marcus stated she was stupid about many things. Serena's face flushed, instructing him not to blame her. Marcus grabbed her arm, clarifying she lied about their baby. She yanked free, stating he was too weak to take what he wanted, so she took it for him. Silence except for the dripping faucet. Marcus sank onto the bed, face in hands, noting he'd lost everything. He reached for his phone, called Elena. 4 rings before she answered, asking what he wanted. Marcus's voice broke, calling her Ely, pleading as her brother, requesting she talk to me. Silence. Elena stated quietly he made his choice, chose Serena over me, money over family, sent our father to prison for something he didn't do. Marcus protested he didn't know about the miscarriage. Elena interrupted, stating he knew deep down I was innocent and he didn't care because it was convenient. Marcus claimed she was his sister. Elena corrected, I was your sister, not anymore. The line went dead. Marcus stared at his dark phone screen. Serena sat in the corner, knees to chest, mascara running. They didn't speak, didn't comfort each other, just existed in separate spheres of misery. The boardroom on Caldwell Plaza's 40th floor was silent. I sat at the head of the marble table, 8 board members watching. Behind me, Julian Vance stood with his laptop ready. 9 in the morning, 1 week after the eviction. I pressed a button. The wall screen showed a plummeting red line. During Marcus King's tenure, net profits fell 40%, debt increased 200%. But most interesting, Julian clicked. Bank transfers appeared. Shell companies. Money flowing through cracks. $1.5 million to Lux Consulting LLC, supposedly interior design. My eyes swept the room, questioning what interior design costs. $1.5 million. Who owns Lux Consulting? Julian answered. Serena King, Marcus's wife, incorporated 3 days after my conviction. Murmurs rippled. The doors burst open. Marcus stumbled in, security reaching but too late. Jeans, wrinkled shirt, no tie, hair uncombed, face unshaven, eyes wild. He shouted he was still legal CEO. This meeting was invalid. I didn't turn, stating he was nothing, just a thief. Marcus protested it was business diversification. Julian cut him off. It's embezzlement, federal crime. I stood slowly, moving as holder of 70% voting shares to dismiss Marcus King as CEO with dishonorable discharge. Marcus went pale, noting I needed 51% minimum. I corrected, I need 51, I have 70, but let's make this unanimous. I looked toward the door, instructing Julian to invite our final board member. The doors opened. Elena King walked in, white suit, hair in tight bun, leather portfolio. Marcus's face shifted. Anger to confusion to relief, thanking God, asking her to tell them this was insane. Elena walked past him, took her seat at the table. Marcus's smile died. I announced Elena King, holder of 30% of Monarch Global shares inherited from Diana King's private trust. Marcus staggered, thinking Mom's shares were dissolved. Elena spoke coldly. He thought wrong. Mom left everything to her and me, with instructions he'd inherit only after proving ethical leadership. She pulled out a thick file, explaining for 2 years she documented his activities. Every transaction, every fake invoice, every lie. Marcus grabbed a chair for support, realizing she was helping me all along. When she visited prison, when she acted like she'd turned her back. Elena's voice cracked, explaining she pretended to side with him, stood in that visitation room calling our father unstable, attended his dinners, listened to his plans, all while collecting evidence. Every email he sent her, every document he asked her to file, everything. Marcus staggered back, claiming she betrayed him. Elena stood, slamming the table, correcting she saved our father. He sent an innocent man to prison, lived in his house, destroyed his reputation for what? Greed. Tears welled, but her voice stayed strong, noting he had everything. I would have made him CEO eventually, but he couldn't wait. She pulled out papers, Judge Crowley bribes, payments to the security technician, shell companies, money laundering. She had everything. Marcus looked around. Board members discussed, Julian's satisfaction, my cold stare. His eyes found Elena, stating he was her brother. Elena's voice broke, responding that person was gone. She sat, composed herself, voting yes to dismiss Marcus King and pursue criminal prosecution. I nodded, calling for all in favor. 8 hands rose, unanimous vote. Security was summoned. Officer David Ortiz stepped forward. Marcus whispered no, pleading with Elena. Elena turned her chair toward the window. David's hand closed on Marcus's arm. Marcus pulled free, turning back, calling Elena's name repeatedly. She didn't move, didn't turn, just sat facing the skyline. David pulled harder. Marcus's last view, Me at the table like a reclaimed king. Board members discussing next steps, and Elena facing the window, shoulders trembling but posture never breaking. The door closed. The lock clicked. Marcus King had just lost the last person who might have saved him. 3 months after the boardroom collapse, the George L. Allen Courts building buzzed with reporters. I sat in the front row, gray suit pressed, spine straight. Beside me, Elena wore a simple black dress, her hand resting on mine. On the defendant's bench, Marcus slumped in an orange jumpsuit, wrists cuffed. Serena sat 2 seats away, her face hollow. They no longer looked at each other. Judge Abernathy entered. The room rose. She began, addressing Marcus King, stating he'd been found guilty of embezzlement, wire fraud, bribery, and conspiracy to commit perjury. The court sentenced him to 15 years in Texas State Penitentiary without eligibility for early parole. Marcus's head dropped. The judge continued, addressing Serena King, noting she cooperated with prosecution, but her role in framing an innocent man couldn't be overlooked. The court sentenced her to 12 years in state prison. Serena stared at her hands. I didn't move as bailiffs led them away. Marcus turned back once, his eyes finding mine. My gaze was ice. Outside the courthouse beneath the wide Texas sky, I stopped on the stone steps. Elena turned to me, her eyes wet, whispering it was over. I pulled her into my arms and wept, deep shaking sobs that came from 2 years of silence, 2 years of betrayal, 2 years of my daughter's secret sacrifice. I choked out that she gave up everything, 2 years pretending to hate me. Elena held me tighter, explaining she couldn't let him win. I stated with raw voice she was the only family I had left. She pulled back, wiping her tears, responding, I was hers too. That's all that matters now. Behind us, Julian Vance and Margaret Hale stood quietly. This moment was sacred. 1 year later, I sat across from Marcus in the visitation room of Texas State Penitentiary. Marcus's face was gaunt, his prison uniform faded. He addressed me softly as Dad, acknowledging he didn't deserve anything but hoping. I slid a manila envelope across the table. Marcus's hands trembled as he pulled out the document. His eyes scanned the words. Transfer of ownership, Monarch Global, to Elena King, 100% shareholder and chief executive officer. Marcus's voice cracked, realizing I was giving her everything. I stated flatly I already did, 6 months ago. It's hers now. Marcus looked up desperately, asking about him. I leaned forward, explaining he was no longer my son, legally, emotionally, financially. He chose greed over family, chose her over me. Marcus began pleading. I instructed him not to. I stood, explaining he would serve his 15 years, and when he got out, he would have nothing. No name, no legacy, no father. I turned toward the door. Marcus's voice broke, calling me Dad, apologizing. I paused, my back to my son. For a moment, the room held its breath. Then I walked out. The steel door clanged shut behind me. Outside, the Texas sun blazed. I walked toward the black sedan where Elena leaned against it, arms crossed, a small smile on her face. She asked gently how it went. I stated it's done. She nodded, responding good. I looked at her, my daughter, my partner, my only true family, asking if she was ready to run an empire. Elena grinned, noting she'd been running it for 6 months, calling me old man. I laughed, a real laugh, the first in years. As the car pulled away from the prison, I glanced once in the side mirror. The gray walls grew smaller, then disappeared. The past was buried. The future was ours. This is my story, a genuine account of betrayal, sacrifice, and the price of loyalty. I'm Alexander King, sharing this because I want you to learn what I learned the hard way. Family isn't just blood, it's who stands by you when the world burns down. Don't be like my son Marcus. Don't let greed blind you to what truly matters. Don't betray the people who built everything you have. I lost my son forever, not to prison, but to his own choices. and I gained a daughter who proved that real love requires sacrifice. Elena pretended to abandon me for 2 years just to save me. That's the kind of person worth fighting for. So here's my advice from this true story. Choose your family wisely. Choose character over convenience. Choose loyalty over greed. If this story touched your heart, please share your thoughts below. Subscribe so you never miss stories like mine. And if you believe in second chances and the power of loyalty, share this message. Let's keep real values alive together.